The island on which Alcatraz prison is located once belonged to the Ohlone Indian tribe. When the prison was erected in the late 1800s, the Native Americans were kicked off and some were even imprisoned on the island afterwards. Then, during the 1960s, Native American groups occupied the island 3 different times, with the third occupation lasting a full 19 months. The first invasion occurred on March 9, 1964, when 5 members of the Lakota tribe went to the island in a boat and held control of it for 4 hours before it was taken back by the federal government. A similar occurrence happened on November 9, 1969, but it wasn't till the third invasion on November 20, 1969, when the Indians successfully occupied the island and held it for the following 19 months. The third invasion was led by Richard Oakes, a Native American activist that recruited many Native American students to help him with the invasion. On November 20th, Oakes and his supporters traveled to the island by boat and claimed it for all Indian tribes. Once Oakes had taken over Alcatraz, he set up negotiations with the federal government. He wanted the American government to formally recognize the existence of Native American tribes. He also demanded control of Alcatraz Island with the intention of setting up an Indian school, museum, and cultural center on the island. The federal government resisted the Indians' demands. At first, they tried to wait for the occupation to fall apart. The government shut off all electrical power to the island and removed the water barge which had provided fresh water to the occupiers. To make matters worse, Richard Oakes left the island on January 6, 1970, when his 13-year-old daughter died and the island began to fall into disarray. Finally, on June 10, 1971, President Nixon approved a removal plan to take back the island. Armed federal marshals stormed the island and removed all Native Americans peacefully without any injuries. As a result of the occupation, the government officially ended its policy of the termination of Indian tribes, and President Nixon returned some 40,000 acres of land to various Indian tribes. Occupied lands near Davis, California eventually became home to a Native American university. The Bureau of Indian Affairs offices in Washington, D.C. started hiring more Native Americans to work in the federal government, and they gained more representation. Even though the island was lost, the occupation gave birth to a political movement which continues to this day.
Hello, my name is Scott Crosby, and I was about 15 years old when the Native Americans took over Alcatraz in around 1970. I was a 15-year-old going to the public schools in Oakland. And to be honest, it was just one issue of many issues. There was a Vietnam War going on, and that was on TV every night. There were race riots, not every day of course, but there was just an awful lot going on. The environment was a new thing. Then one day the Native Americans took over Alcatraz. I was only a 15-year-old, so I didn't have strong opinions, but I think the general reaction of the public was that they were breaking the law and trespassing. And although we understood understood that they may have been neglected by the federal government and by society. It went on and on and on, and they began to lose support with the public. At least that's the way I remember